Hello, Fran. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too. 2022. It's going to be a good one.
I agree. May it be the best.
Yeah.
Oh, happy to see you here today. And I am just going to segue right into this because you've decided on such an appropriate topic for after the holidays and where all of us are always eating a bit more than we should. So
That's
why
right.
don't you tell us what you're talking about today?
So today, Marina, because it's January 1st, I think there are many, many people who have um, get into a right-sized body or lose a certain amount of weight or get to a goal number or fix their relationship with food. And so that's what the topic is about today. Um, what is an unhealthy relationship with food? What does a healthy relationship look like? And what does that mean to us? And so I know you have a background with food. I have a background with food. Would you like to share some of your history with food?
Yeah, so I always felt like a really chubby child, and even growing up, I was a chubby baby. I was, if you look at my family, I was definitely the more chubby one, and I also had an obese grandmother, and my siblings started to tease me at some point in my life that I looked like her. But I have there was such emotional trauma in my life that food became my crutch. It became my comfort, it became my pleasure. And it became quite an addiction for me. And I always think of, if you are addicted to heroin, you don't go to the grocery store and it's just there in your face. But if you're addicted to sugar, it's everywhere. So you have to work really hard on yourself to overcome that.
Yeah. And I've got a similar story. There were two daughters, myself and my older sister. We were only 10 months apart. So, but she was always quite sickly and I was always healthy. And so even though we wore the same size clothes, like we were little and we were wearing the same size clothes, she was taller than I was, but I was bigger because I was the healthy baby. But that stays with you, right? And so mom would call us twins. We weren't twins, but mom would call us twins, but I was the short, fat one. And my sister was the tall, skinny one. And so that fat term stayed with me. And when your older brothers and sisters start to tease, that's what comes out first: fatty, fatty, 2x4, right? Or they used to call me Fats Dynamo, right? I mean, I'm this little kid. I'm just a normal, healthy child. I wasn't overweight, but that's the label that you get stuck with. And children will be children, and they will, they know what your sore spot is. But later on, it did become an unhealthy relationship. And when I was in my late teens, I became bulimic. And so I did develop an unhealthy relationship with food. And in order to maintain a weight that was acceptable for me, I I started doing those habits, the habit of purging after binging. And it wasn't until I found out that it was really bad for your teeth, that it could, wear away the enamel on your teeth. That's when I stopped it. But the unhealthy relationship with food, I've had that for many, many years. And so the topic today is relevant for me for many reasons. The word relationship is is the key word here. So I think if we can look at food as an actual relationship rather than something that just you go to the fridge and make something for supper, blah, blah, blah. If we can look at it as an actual relationship, that I think it will start to shift us in how we deal with food. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. We all have relationships in our life, and these are with human beings. Human beings are alive, right? and they can have passed away, and we still would have had a relationship with them. But food is a living thing as well. All food at one time was alive. So if we can look at food as a living entity and change our mindset about having this relationship with this living entity, I think that that's step number one. And so our mentor, Marissa Peer, she's got a way of looking at food as well. She thinks of food as don't eat it unless it roams, used to run, or can rot. And I think those are the three, right? So I think humanity has done itself a huge disservice by beginning to eat processed foods that are so far away from being alive that if we looked at the label on most processed foods, we can't even read the label, let alone have a relationship with an unknown word. Um, we are having People are having unhealthy relationships with chemicals, and you and I both know what chemicals can do to the brain. Sugar, and the other one is flour. So let's look at our toxic culture first. So uh, I know that Gabor Mate. So I'm not sure, you must know Gabor Mate. He's Yeah, Gabor Mate is one of the leading doctors in the world who's looked at addictions in general because of his background working with street people on the streets of East Side Vancouver, where the highest level of addictions in the world are. And as a as a medical doctor, he became to realize that everybody who's got an addiction, with the heavy duty addictions that you've just talked about, the heroin and the crack cocaine and such unhealthy addictions, they all came from backgrounds of dysfunction. And so he started to look at that, and he made it his life purpose to actually dig deeper into the stories that were behind these people. Yeah, they're a street person, they're a bum, they're an addict, they cheat, steal, and lie to get their next fix. But they all came from dysfunctional families. And so, well, let's look at addiction. So let's look at what happens with our addiction to food. And you already said you had a sugar addiction, right?
I would
And
say I still have it.
yeah,
I'm like the person that would go to a meeting and say, I'm an alcoholic. I'm actually really a sugar addict.
and I am as well.
Mhm.
I am a sugar addict and I am a flour addict because the two go hand in hand. And if you've ever been in a 12-step program for food addictions, they will say stay away from both sugar and flour, because sugar is like cocaine and flour is like heroin. They work off each other because they're both processed to the point where they're unrecognizable in your body as something that the body knows that's beneficial for you. So sugar at one time came from the sugar plant, it came from the sugar cane or the sugar beet or something like that, but it's so overly processed, just like cocaine came from one time from the cocoa bean, right? Or heroin at one time came from the poppy. But they take it and they process it down until it's so super concentrated now that the good stuff that ever was with it, the fiber and the good stuff, is gone, and all you get is that hit, right? You get an immediate hit. But why do some people get addicted? I know why I did, and I think you know why you got addicted: because of adverse childhood experiences. So Gabor Mate looked at the study that was done with 17,000 adults with addiction. 17,000, and it was done by actually a insurance company in the States called Kaiser Permanente, and I think it's out of California. So they looked at these 17,000 addicts, and they looked at their childhoods. Well, they came up with 10 adverse childhood experiences. And the more adverse childhood experiences you have, the greater your risk of addiction. So if you looked at divorce as in your parents' mental health, whether there was sexual abuse as a child, emotional abuse, if one of your parents were incarcerated or if they exhibited criminal behavior, if there was substance abuse in the parents, if the mother had been a battered mother, if there was homelessness within the childhood, domestic violence, or neglect. And the more of those adverse childhood experiences you have, the greater your risk for addiction. And so when we look at that, well, it's things start to fall into place, don't they? But why addictions? It's because those of us that have had these adverse childhood experiences, we grow up believing there's something wrong with us. Because why else would our parents not love us? Why else would this be happening to me, this abuse or all of these things that are so chaotic for a young child? It can't be because of the parent. So your brain switches on to autopilot to say, well, it's not the parents, because if it's the parents, there's this chance that if it's my fault, then I can fix this. I can become a better child. I can become more caring, more loving, more whatever it has to be to fix this situation so that my parents can give me the childhood, the love that I need as a child. So we start to try to fix ourselves. We try to make ourselves better, and we become high achievers, or we become overly caring, or we become somehow our mind will create for us opportunities to become better so that our parents will love us more. And little kids don't know that it's not their fault. Little kids don't know that it's the adult's fault. And so we get into that space where, okay, this is not working, this is not working. But what will work? Food. Food often works to make us comforted. But why? What is it about sugar? What is it about flour? Those are two very highly addictive substances. Sugar is actually 8 times more addictive than cocaine. How do we know this? Rat studies. Well, no, humans aren't rats. However, you can take a rat, and this is what they did. They took a rat and shot it up with cocaine so that it became a cocaine addict. The rat's a cocaine addict. And then they gave it a choice. They could either take the cocaine or take the sugar. And what did the rat go for? Sugar. So yes, sugar is highly addictive. And why is flour addictive? Flour is addictive because of what it does when it's in the bloodstream. Flour, like sugar, hits the bloodstream so fast and gives a high so fast because it converts itself into sugar. So one becomes the other. And we, like if you look at the science behind it, it's all about dopamine, right? Dopamine is that feel good chemical. When you take dopamine, you feel better. I mean, you get comfort, and it's just for a moment. The dopamine floods through your brain and you feel better. You feel comforted. You feel like this is going to be wonderful. But like every other addictive substance, it's a high that doesn't last, and it goes away, and you feel even worse afterwards. So those of us that have used sugar, that have used flour to become comforted, it becomes our go-to. And then there's the relationship we have with it. It becomes unhealthy. So if we were to look at a unhealthy relationship with a human being, What's number one that would come up for you if you know that your relationship is unhealthy? What's an unhealthy something, Marina?
Hmm. Um, oh my goodness, they can be so many of them. Fran, an unhealthy relationship to me is something where I give more than I get. That's one scenario. Or
Mhm.
when there's some form of abuse, or if you just go back for more punishment.
Isn't that
Yeah,
the truth? Hey,
yeah.
how about gaslighting?
Oh, that too. Right, right. I mean, that's all part
Gaslighting,
of it, right?
the lies, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So if we can look at the unhealthy food that we put in our bodies, the addictive food, and then the lies the food tells us, but we also tell ourselves about it. The
mm-hmm,
lies that beautiful cheesecake, the cheesecake, the lie the cheesecake tells, or the lie that beautiful, that piece of cake that's covered with that frosting chocolate. Oh, I mean, just thinking about it, my mouth drools, right? So, I mean, yeah, if I eat that food, I'm just gonna be feeling so much better. It's a lie. It's not going to make you feel better. It might make you feel better for that split second, and then, as in many toxic relationships, what do we start doing after? Beating ourselves up. We beat ourselves up that I was only going to take that much, and now there's half a cake missing.
mm-hmm.
Ah, well, there's already half a cake missing. What's it going to hurt? I mean, I'll just build a new one. So let's just eat the rest of it. I've done that.
Right.
Is that healthy? Absolutely not. But that's where my brain went because of lies. And also codependency, right? A codependent relationship is an unhealthy relationship. Why do people say it? You've heard people say, I just need to have chips. When I'm watching a movie, I need to have that hot buttered popcorn. Uh, or I can't go to sleep unless I have. So the things we tell our brain about how it's necessary for us. And yet, is it really necessary? We both know it's not true. So we start rationalizing, just like in an unhealthy relationship. We are first in denial that it's unhealthy. Nah, what's it gonna hurt? What's it gonna hurt? And then well, I only eat that food X and O amount of times. So it's not that bad for me because, I do have a handle on this. I do have control over it. And then we start thinking up reasons. We start thinking up reasons why we deserve that. And it could be in our unhealthy relationship as well. Yeah, if I only, if I'm having an unhealthy relationship with another human, I can say something like, well, if only I had been a better wife, if I had only been not been nagging, if I only had been more responsive to his needs, if only I start to take responsibility for this whole relationship. And so we start to rationalize our relationship with food as well. As I worked really hard this week, let's I think we deserve to go, all of us, we should go for whatever it is. And sometimes it's alcohol, right? And we know what alcohol is made out of. It's
Sugar.
sugar. I mean, it's so concentrated. And then there's the stuff we put in the alcohol just to improve the taste a bit. Things always go better with a Coke. And the marketing tells us on TV
Mm.
as we're sitting and watching the game, or we're sitting and watching whatever it is those commercials that come on. And thank the good Lord, now we can, fast forward through the commercials or whatever. But back in the day when you and I became addicts of sugar, and for me, it's flour as well, There was no such thing as fast forwarding through the commercials. So if we looked at the shelves in the grocery store, okay, you and I, because we're aware of our addictions, we know where the healthy food is and we know where the unhealthy food is. Where's the unhealthy food? The stuff that's going to keep us addicted. Where's that stuff, Marina?
It's very visible. It's all at the front, on the sides, right? Am I right? Definitely. Like I always think if you go to pay, it's all these chocolate bars are sitting there. You're standing in line to pay, and it's definitely there. So
You
yeah,
know,
am I wrong? It's in the middle. I'm trying to think of the grocery
you
store. I
are
almost
right on
okay.
both
Yeah.
accounts.
All right.
The food is right there at the front, at the end,
Mhm.
usually at the ends of the aisles, right at the
That's
end,
true. Yeah.
or right where you pay, or there's that whole lot aisle of food, those aisles of
Yeah.
food in the middle from top to bottom. They're
You cannot
there.
avoid it.
And what color are they?
Oh, very bright, beautiful, pink and
Ah,
green and red and
mm,
yellow and
eye-catching. And the worst stuff is right at eye
right.
level,
Oh, right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At eye level.
You cannot
And I
help to pass it. Now that I think of it, you kind of have to pass it.
and I think about Costco. Think about Costco, and I think about there's a huge Canadian Tire that I go into sometimes where the checkouts kind of go back and forth,
Right.
like
Right.
like in an airport now,
Yeah.
right? You go back and forth, and everywhere you're looking is like, wow, there's that licorice. Man, I love licorice. And then there's the all sorts, and then there's the candy bar, and then there's the big packages of candy, and then it's like you're in this long lineup. How many times do people who are super bored in that great big long lineup start just, yeah, that'd be kind of, let's put it in, sure, why not? And so any food conviction that you had, let's make it a healthy new year, kind of goes out the window when we're pulverized with the marketing that goes on with it.
Yeah.
And Marina, the more you study this stuff, the more you find out that there are scientists that work for these companies that make the sweetness level for the sugar in these products. They make that sweetness level maximum sweetness to the max. The amount of tablespoons of sugar that go into one serving is at the max, because they know that if they can get you at the highest maximum, that's where you get addicted to it.
Right.
Nothing more, because there's something called I forget the name of it, but it's that little bit too much where your body actually starts to vomit because it's too sweet. And so scientists are actually, like when I hear about that, or when I tell my students about that, they can't believe it, but there would be something so inhumane, so immoral, to cause sugar addicts like that, where you're so addicted, but not anymore in that, because your body knows and it'll vomit it out. Terrible. And so there we go. We have these unhealthy relationships with food, not from our own. We didn't do it to ourselves. Most of us that are food addicts, we didn't do it to ourselves. We were a victim of circumstances from our childhood, how we coped. It's all a coping mechanism, right? Our brain tried to help us, tried to make us believe, in order for us to survive, that we could fix this on our own, which we couldn't. And so, just like any unhealthy relationship, we have to decide, is the relationship worth it? Or is it time to break up with it? And if you've been in a 12-step program, you know that it's pretty darn hard to keep a relationship with an unhealthy ex. So there's the crux of it. Do we break up for good, or can we be friends with the ex?
That's a good question.
Hmm. And for me, I had to break up for good. And so my relationship with food, I can't have sugar and I can't have flour. And people say, Fran, how the hell do you do that? It's impossible. Well, it sounds impossible, doesn't it? Sounds impossible. And there are days when I do get tempted, just like if you had an unhealthy relationship, there's that temptation to just phone, hey, how you doing? You know, I miss you. I miss you. But is it enough to get back into the relationship? No, because I know what the relationship did to me, what it did to how I felt about myself, how I felt about my body. Marina, you know that I'm a runner. Well, I started to become hyper vigilant years and years ago. Um, I would say as a teenager, I became addicted to exercise. Was it the
And
exercise?
almost replacing one addiction with another.
Yes, and co-addictions, right? I
Interesting.
was addicted to the flour and sugar, which I didn't even know that I was addicted. So I could overeat, I could binge. I wasn't purging anymore, but I was sure had the exercise addiction. And whether it was like run on the treadmill and then lift weights for 2 hours and then do a session of aerobics. I mean, my children will tell you the what extent I went to maintain a healthy body weight, a healthy body size, because yeah, they were young and they were part of that with me. You know, I would drag them along with me to the gym and they played in the kids' little corner there while I did unhealthy exercise. I mean, exercise is unhealthy? Question mark. It sure can be when it's meant to offset the effects of food addiction.
So a question about that, Fran. Do you think that you replace the purging part with exercise? Isn't exercise then, to that extent, that excessive exercise, also a form of purging?
Yeah, I never thought of it, but you're right. Hmm. You're right. And I have very good friends that I made while at the gym, and I questioned that myself. Were they doing the same thing? Right? We all would, we would all work out like crazy, and then as it typically happens with exercise addiction, uh, sometimes it starts harming you physically. And I did get harmed physically because I was running, uh, I was running like 35 kilometers at a time. For me and my body shape, that wasn't healthy. I know there are others that can run far faster and far longer, super elite, hyper, people that are just meant for that with their body. My body wasn't meant for that. And that caused physical issues with my body that I live with today. And so if I known if I had known then what I know now, that it all was a result of this unhealthy relationship with food, I would have done things differently. But we don't do better until we know better. And so now I don't exercise like that anymore. I exercise for the love of it rather than for um, the need to control my body size, my body shape. For the last 4 years since I gave up sugar and flour, I've been in the right size body for me. Finally, I always thought I had these big bones. I told myself, yeah, I just have big bones. And, that's why I'm a little bit bigger. Well, I don't have bigger bones than anybody else, like I don't. I'm just an ordinary human. I'm not a Neanderthal or anything. So, yeah, I can carry my weight and it doesn't look like I'm heavier, but now I'm finally in a right size body, which for everybody, that's their own, we all have our own ability to tell whether we're happy with our body or not. And finally, I am happy with my body. Finally, I feel free,
It's
and the freedom
amazing.
is, yeah.
I'm thinking of the book, Fran, that we had to read as part of our studies by Johan Hari, Lost
Mhm.
Connections, and that's I keep referring to that book because it's definitely one of the ones that really add so many layers of information for me. There was a study that I did. So I've done a lot of extended fasting through my cancer journey and my weight loss journey, as well as the ketogenic diet. And I firmly still believe in that. And but there's a chapter in the book where scientists realize that if they let people fast, and these are morbidly obese people, for an extended period, and this is like insane amounts of time, and just give them, I believe it was magnesium and potassium, then they can survive without food for a long time. So they did that very successfully until they stopped. And the moment they stopped, these people gained weight again. So then they brought the psychologists in, and they started to say, okay, but why did they gain the weight back? And when they started to investigate why these people got fat in the first place, why they had that relationship with food that got them in there in the first place, if you don't heal that, then you're going to go back to that. So it's all about that, the pain that causes you to go to food.
And that's where we come in, right?
Exactly.
That's where rapid transformational therapy works miracles.
Mm-hmm.
When I was that little girl, that little chubby girl, or where you were that little chubby girl, and we tried so hard to get the love we needed. And you and I are both sensitive people. That's why we do RTT. That's why we're so attracted to helping people overcome whatever it is that they need help with. And so we can go back through RTT, through the skills we have now, and help the person to heal at that tiny age, like to let them know they are beautiful exactly the way they are. And there is nothing that they need to ever do to make them enough, that they're already enough. They always were enough. They always will be enough, just by who inherently that they are.
Right.
And we can do that through what we do, the journey that we have with our clients. And it's so, like we say, rapid. It's rapid transformation. So this relationship that we have with food, not everybody's an addict. The studies show, I think, there might be in if you took 3 overweight or obese people, there might be one of them that's an addict. One. So that, which is still high, right? It's still high. But I think that we all, whether we give up something in the food that's addictive, or whether we just change our relationship with food, we can make a difference. So what does a healthy relationship look like? You are in a healthy relationship right now with your husband. What's one thing that the two of you share, that you have, that you know that helps to have a healthy relationship?
Well, one of the things that I think is amazing is we really like each other, and then we are great at communicating.
You
We
talk.
like to be around each other. It's really a great relationship. We talk a lot, a lot. It's really rarely quiet.
And I think the idea of being able to communicate is huge, right? To be able to talk to that other person without judgment, without condemnation, without guilt, without shame, without all those really negative emotions or even fear, right? Like that creates a relationship that's healthy, like to be able to be yourself. So how do we do this with food? We talked about it last time, the acronym SOBER. Stay silent, observe, breathe. What's my emotion? And then here's my response. So if I were to get a food craving of some kind, so maybe it's that craving for chips. And studies have shown that the chomping, the chewing, the crunchy sting in chips, that within that, there are receptors in our jaws that releases, that help when there's that crunch, 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 that cortisol is released. Cortisol. Well, what does cortisol do? Sometimes it can give you the fight, the flight, or the freeze, but it also works for helping us to calm down sometimes. Cortisol also helps us to be in that space where we can actually look at the situation and decide for ourselves, should we fight, flight, or freeze? And so that chomping thing, lots of people are addicted to potato chips or nuts or anything that you can get a real chomp, chomp, chomp out of it. Well, what's the S? Let's just not go for the addiction yet, or whatever it is that we're craving. Let's just stay silent. Let's observe ourselves. What's going on here? I'm sure getting a craving right now. What's going on? Let's breathe. Okay, let's just breathe through this. Calm down, Fran. What's my emotion that I'm feeling? Bingo. Okay, so I just had a fight with my boss. What am I feeling? I'm feeling frustration. Or I just got a phone call that my visa, someone's hacked my visa on Amazon. Oh my God, what am I feeling? Fear. What am I feeling? Those feelings. What am I feeling? Oh, I forgot to phone my sister on her birthday. I'm feeling guilt or whatever is feeling. Let's take a look at the feeling and then respond. Does that make me, just because I had a fight with my boss, does that mean that I am a poor employee? Just because I forgot to phone my sister on her birthday, does that make me a bad human? Just because whatever my emotion, this fear, I'm fearful, does this mean that my bank account's been cleared out because my visa got hacked? Probably not. But we can talk to that emotion. We can talk to the emotion and say, hey, thanks. Thanks for making me aware, but I can take it from here. When you were young and when you were small and when you couldn't cope, you would use food to help you feel better. But I'm an adult now and I can take over. But thanks. Thanks for being there for me.
You can see me nodding my head because I am in noticing myself. I'm definitely, anything that stresses me out, the first thing I do is I go to the kitchen. And the other thing is when I'm bored, or anything like in my business, when I sometimes internet stuff and computer stuff, I don't hate it, but sometimes it frustrates me. So I would get up my desk and go to the kitchen. And then I would look for something to eat. And then I have to catch myself. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm. And they say too, and I often do this myself. Marina, I'm so not perfect. So I have to put little stickers on things, right? So for me, my drug of choice now, instead of food, instead of sugar and flour, my drug of choice is fruit. So fruit is full of fructose, which the body recognizes as a sugar. It's still a bad one. The good thing about fruit itself, it's got the fiber in to help slow down the absorption rate into your bloodstream. Fruit juices, those are bad because they have no more fiber left and they'll hit your bloodstream super quick, and they really are super concentrated with the fructose. High fructose corn syrup, we talked about that a little bit earlier. anything with corn syrup is high fructose, the sugar amounts in that. And so I have to put little stickers on. I put little stickers on my fruit bowls. It's like a little sticker that says, Fran, what you're wanting is a connection right now. And
Interesting.
so, yeah, go instead. I'll do my other unhealthy obsession, which is scrolling on the phone
Yeah.
and seeing if there's anything interesting that just popped up into my, up into the feed. And so I also have go-tos to replace the health in a healthy way. And so if I get like a craving for something that I know is not good for me, I go to the piano. And I'm such a novice at the piano. I took it up at the age of 50. And
Good for
so,
you.
yeah, a guy that keeps your fingers busy, right?
Right.
Keeping my fingers busy, and it gets me distracted to the point where, okay, I'm no longer craving that food. And so let's look at healthy relationships. Healthy relationships, you express gratitude, right? It's just something that, like you say thank you, you show appreciation. So what I learned through through this journey, it's such a journey, is the power of expressing gratitude before you eat, whether you're a person who prays or not. 30 seconds is all it takes. 30 seconds of expressing gratitude to the food, to the creator, to God, whoever, just expressing gratitude before you eat. Makes a world of difference. And if you're sitting in the drive-through, it's pretty hard to do that. But when you're creating your own food at home, it's much easier, especially if you're sitting around a table with other people. It slows you down. And just being, you say that you and your husband just love to be with each other, right? Slow down when we're eating. Like, if we're going to have a relationship with somebody, we actually give them time. We make them worthwhile, worth a while. So let's slow down when we eat and really appreciate every mouthful. Chew, actually chew before and swallow before you take another mouthful. That's what we do in relationships. We also stay in attunement. So we're kind of, those people who have really good, healthy relationships, they kind of know what's going on with their spouse, right? Your spouse probably has certain behaviors that they exhibit and you know that there's something on their mind. You stay in attunement. Well, we stay in attunement as well. We need to stay in attunement with ourselves. How are we feeling? Why are we feeling that? Does that mean that we're a bad person? Does that mean that we should? And it's subconscious, right? Does that mean that we should overload ourselves with unhealthy food to punish ourselves? Because that's also in there. Punishment.
Mm.
If we're punishing ourselves, we will eat the food that's not good for us, or we will overeat to punish subconsciously. Of course, it's all subconscious, but that's what it is. And then we get that sugar hangover, which is the fogginess, I can't find my stuff. Where did I leave my phone? God, where's the car keys? That kind of stuff. It can even happen coming out of the mall. It's like, where did I leave my car? I can't remember. So we punish ourselves. Staying curious. Another big one. Staying curious in a relationship. Hey, how are you doing? How was that for you? How are you feeling about this? Or do you think that maybe? Well, let's stay curious with ourselves too. Let's stay curious. If we did have a binge, if we did go off the plan, let's stay curious. Why? Let's go back a little bit. What was going on in our lives that we felt that we needed to have a binge? We needed to go off plan. And I think one of the most important things is we all have a honeymoon phase in a relationship, right? Where we will do everything we can to show our best side. to show this other human um, how their lives would be so much better with us in them. And so we are on our best behavior. And so those of us on January 1st, when we make a commitment to eat healthy, we have a honeymoon phase. And we do this thing, this honeymoon phase, and we're super conscious of eating healthy and eating on plan and not doing whatever it is that's going to break this. And some people go on a diet or whatever, but then it's there. Then we need to think about the long term. A relationship doesn't last unless we have a long-term commitment to it. You and I both, boing, 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 boing. How many times did we lose the same 20 pounds? You know, when we say lose it, it's gonna be here somewhere. It's only going to be a matter of time before we find it. So let's even change the words around it. Instead of saying, I'm going to lose it, how about we say, I'm going to release it. I'm going to free it. I'm going to be free of it. And then you no longer will find it happening, maybe in the fridge, in the cabinet, in the corner, wherever. Let's never find it again. Let's just release it and be free of it. And that's why our lifestyle needs to change as well. Because if we don't change our lifestyle, the long-term effects will not stay. Just like in a relationship, if we don't commit to the relationship itself, the relationship won't last.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me, Fran, how would you use rapid transformational therapy to make all this stick?
So the beauty, there's so many beautiful things about RTT. And we've said it before about there's so many different modalities that we use. And so one of the things that's super important is to find out the background of the person, right? Find out their background, find out the relationship that they had within their family, within with their siblings, with their parents. It's kind of like the adverse childhood experiences, right? How many adverse childhood experiences did that person, that human, go through? And then there's listening compassionately. Gabor Mate talks about compassion, and he mentions that there's 5 levels of compassion. There's a compassion that we can have, but higher levels of compassion actually put us with that person and say to that person, you're beautiful the way you are. You're beautiful, and I'm there with you. I'm there with you. And it doesn't matter the level of your addiction. You are a beautiful human being, and you always were, and you always will be, and have been more than enough. Just us being with that person, that human that says that to that tiny that child, because often these adverse childhood experiences are where the addiction or where that compulsion was born. If we can find that place with that person in front of us and be with that small child and say, yeah, baby, you're going to be okay, honey. You're going to be okay. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. That level of compassion is paramount in overcoming any kind of addiction, whether it's a food addiction or anything else, compulsion, obsession, depression, sadnesses, things that we carry into our adulthood. Compassion is paramount. And so that's another thing that we do. And we also reframe it. And so you and I both know what reframe means. Our audience might not know, but it's a way that we do this as a practitioner while while our client is still under hypnosis, to change their ideas about how this is going to continue to be plaguing them in their life. And so we give them a new story We give them a new future. And that is the last thing that we do is we make them a recording that is their new future, how they will now interact, how they will now be, how it's the old is the past. We're not going back to it. We have a future. We have a future of being free. And that is the most profound, the most beautiful thing you can give another human being.
Brilliant, brilliant. I absolutely love that, changing that inner voice and the meaning, the power that our minds have. We keep on saying that we have brilliant minds, because we do. And our minds adopt the meaning that food has for us. And so it's kind of finding out why, and then changing that and give it a new meaning.
Yeah.
How lucky are we?
You know, I think of it as such a privilege. Every time I have a client and I'm able to help them through something, I just think it's such a privilege. It's just a privilege.
Yeah, it's wonderful when you start to see the results also for your clients. And I just got a testimonial back of a lady that lost 6 pounds right after our sessions without even trying. Like, it just, because suddenly there was meaning, there was an understanding of why did she always go to chocolate biscuits? Like, what was it about chocolate biscuits? And then suddenly, oh my goodness, that was an emotional response to a stress in her life as a child. And suddenly that's gone. That need is gone.
And it's interesting. Lots of people are their comfort food is a milk product. And so for me, I have to be super careful with yogurt. I mean, people will say, Fran, yogurt is healthy. Well, yeah, it is healthy in small amounts, not in
like
huge.
everything else in small amounts.
Yeah, but what is it about a milk product? Well, if we were to go back to our basic need as a baby, our basic need was milk. And breast milk contains both sugar, it's sweet, breast milk is sweet. It doesn't contain sugar, it contains the lactose, I guess, but it's sweet and it's fatty, sweet and fatty. And so we, and that's in many addictions, the sweet and the fatty is what it gets to us. Why? Right back from the time we're born. And so that's our comfort foods. So the human brain is the more we learn, right, Marina?
It's an
the more we learn.
The more clients I get, I was saying to a client the other day that every single time I learn from them. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So let's minimize our risk. Stay out of the inside aisles unless it's absolutely necessary. Go around the outside aisles. The outside is where your healthy fruits and vegetables are, your meats, your dairy. It's all around the outside. Only go into the center when you need to. Check your labels. Anything that has fructose, glucose, sucrose, and then of course there's the dextrose and maltose, and all of those are sugar. So if they're in the top 3 ingredients, don't do it. Stay away. And breakfast cereals, right? Oh my goodness, breakfast cereals are supposed to be so healthy for you. There are so few that do not have added sugar, like even the stuff that, even our from childhood, the amount of sugar in that stuff. And double think, always double think, do you really need the second helping? One plate is going to be plenty. And there's nothing wrong with not finishing off your plate. There's nothing wrong with sending it into the trash. Yeah.
Indeed.
So I hope that our viewers, whoever watched this, find freedom in it, to know that there's freedom. There's freedom from food addictions. There's freedom from yo-yoing. There's freedom from the unhealthy relationships that we have built throughout our lifetime because it's a coping mechanism. There's freedom from it. And there's a beautiful life on the other side. And it's a journey. It's an absolute journey, but every relationship is. It's a work in progress. It's one step at a time, one day at a time, to build a beautiful, healthy relationship. But it's a possibility, and it's possible for all of us.
Right. Amazing. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you.
Well,
so do you know what you're talking about next week, Marina?
you know, we discussed this a little bit earlier, but I think I'm going to announce it a bit later. There's some thinking I have to do about it. There's a few things that came up and that we'll talk about. So yes, we'll discuss.
Sounds great.
To be announced.
To be announced.
Okay.
Yeah. Typical, kind of like me, right? It's like,
well,
let's think about this.
We just human, and we just doing the best we can with what we have. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Fran, and we will see you next week.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, you as well.
Love you.
Love you too.